going live, bro.
Yep. Let me know when we good.
We good. All right. So I just wanted to welcome anybody that's watching. For those of y'all tuning in, we got, my brother Chris Thomas here with us. We're here live at Promises. Like I said, we just legit got out of service a couple seconds ago. And so we wanted to have like a dope conversation about, the benefits of HBCUs, amen, the HBCU experience. And so, many people, and today was our Rep Your HBCU Sunday. I personally did not go to an HBCU. I went to PWIs. And so I'm going to give my little take and my input, on that in a little bit. But let me just first Chris, tell us more about you before we even dig into where you went to school. Give us a little bit of your background.
All right, yeah. My name's Chris Thomas. First and foremost, pleasure to speak to everyone today. Hopefully this conversation is fruitful. Little background about me, Taylor, like my big sister. I'm my only child. I kind of grew up in this neighborhood where it took a village. We all from uptown. It took a village to really like raise me. Like my mom, best mom on the planet. She worked a whole lot. So my mom was out and I was in the streets. Yep, my mom here somewhere. I know she on. But for sure, when she was working and really holding it down as a single parent, I feel like I was out and about in the streets, making bad decisions from time to time. Miss Baroness, Taylor's mom, definitely stepped in and put me on the couch, literally. So what you doing out there? It's safer in here, watching basketball games, feeding me, keeping me out of trouble. And I think through that, I got a tribe of siblings that I never imagined, right? And a lot of that, and even watching Taylor, watching you, T, inspired me just to go to school. You went to Girls High, went to Central. You were a few years older than me, and you always had your mind right. I never saw you stick your toe in the water of trouble the way that we were doing it. So not to say that you weren't, but you definitely felt like you were making more adult decisions than the bulk of us. And I didn't really see a lot of that with the kids in our neighborhood, right? So a combination of watching people like you, but then also my best friend Wesley Garris' older brother, is a Morehouse graduate. He's a Morehouse graduate. Really put me in a space to start considering higher education, let alone HBCUs. Like I said, born and raised from Philly. I'm the first on my father's side to go to college, the second on my mother's side to go to college. So it wasn't necessarily like I came from this pipeline of people who really attended institutions of higher education, let alone HBCU. So for me, it was big to kind of be on that frontier. And I won't even lie and say like I was really trying to go to school. A lot of me going to school was circumstantial, just off of like how the neighborhood was changing and how the stakes were getting higher and people were quite frankly dying in the neighborhood and going to jail. And it was getting closer and closer to home. So like I said, my man Wesley's older brother was a Morehouse guy. He would come home every summer tell me how like popping it was. Like, to be quite frank, I had no clue of the school's like rich, illustrious history and how pivotal this institution was in the civil rights movement, or even just producing and raising up Black men, right? I didn't have that lens on it. I hadn't even visited the school before I moved on campus. My first time seeing the campus was on moving day. I had never even been on campus before. So I literally went down there on a women of prayer and off of understanding that the way I saw it going for kids in my neighborhood, I didn't want it to go like that for me. So I think the long and short, that's my story. Now I'm in New York City. I'm a writer. I've always gotten paid for my words. Used to be in journalism. Now I work in the advertising space. I'm an associate creative director at an ad agency here in New York.
Big thing, bro. Every time I see you, I'm like, oh, hold on, he doing this, he doing that. Like you always. I need. So this is the question I have for you. So what is it? What did the HBCU experience? Just like, what did it give you? Like, what was the experience? And I'm asking not just for the people watching, but I'm asking because I did not have the opportunity to go. And I've had other conversations with other individuals about, the HBCU experience. And it was the camaraderie of being around people like them, the barriers of that you would have in a traditional PWI setting in terms of learning, like you don't have to worry about that. So give me a little bit of that.
Honestly speaking, T, what I would say is it's how you feel and what your HBCU experience is truly formed on base level by how you grew up and where you grew up. Like, we grew up in a neighborhood full of black people and Black families. So I never felt any shortage of Blackness since I was a child. My mom had me in Black-owned black-owned private schools. I had always been educated by black teachers. I didn't really like see white teachers and have white classmates until I went to Central. So for me, that felt more comfortable than the PWI setting. So like I only was applying to PWIs that I had fee waivers to, but I knew I wanted to go to a HBCU because that just felt more natural to how I was always socialized and educated. Like I always grew up in black spaces. I always felt empowered in black spaces. And at the time, Atlanta was like the biggest thing since like ATL just came out, like the ATL movie just came out. So it just felt like the blackest possible city to kind of continue my life story, right? So for me, going to a HBCU, what I didn't really anticipate was that like it gave me this thing that I like to call the power of possibility, right? Like we come from very blue collar backgrounds. Some families more successful than others, but like it don't matter if you're a little more successful in this household. We all grew up on the same block. Like it doesn't matter what median incomes and things are. I'm sure it makes you a little more comfortable, but we're still in the same circumstances. If the neighborhood's violence, you're subject to the same level of violence. Like nobody was, even if financially things were a little disparate between like household to household, we were still subjected to the same living conditions in certain instances. Going to a HBCU was the first time I was able to kind of see like, oh, like I'm friends with Stevie Wonder's kids. Like they went to school with me. Like I'm saying, like I'm but on the same token, I also have like there's no major American city that I can go to and not have somebody somebody in that city, right? Because like people came from near and far, like not even just domestically but globally, to go to a school like Morehouse College, right? So a lot, and then also Morehouse being like in the heart of Southwest Atlanta, where Atlanta itself is one of the most prosperous, and even if you go back to like the civil rights movement, like it's like a liberal capital of the South. It's always been enriching for Black people, which is why, like by and large, even during the civil rights movement, we were involved with greatly involved with the political process down there. It's a city that kind of operate where Black people can operate with a level of autonomy that you don't really see anywhere in the country. So it really showed me like, oh, like this is what it looks like to be a Black engineer or a Black doctor, and to like go to school and graduate. Like there were kids who were like going to school and coming from like the same kind of backgrounds as you and I, and coming out of school going to work on Wall Street, making six figures at 21 years old. Like that's the kind of like circumstances that they put you in. So what you start seeing is just these experiences of how far Black excellence can really span, what it looks like, and it can, and you start to kind of get a sense that it can look however you want it to look. And I don't think that's something that we are always privy to or empowered to believe from a very young age. Like people tell you you can be whatever you want, but like they don't really give you a blueprint on how to do so. And that's not to say that Morehouse does that per se, but when you like a freshman and the senior dude you got cool with, you see how they're moving from graduation and all through your 4 years, how their 4 years of living in the real world starts to look. You start to see like, oh, it is feasible, it is possible, right? Like even in the creative spaces, like
that's huge. You speaking on representation, and I'm just going to be honest again. Like just to remind everybody, I went to Ursinus College for undergrad and Syracuse University for my MBA, and even here in the city, Girls High was pretty mixed. There was a nice nice demographic, nice representation. But middle school, I went to Masterman. I didn't have the representation that everybody else gets. I didn't get to see a bunch of Black women from Ursinus, going, and the ones that I know, they've gone on to do great things, but it wasn't a lot of them, and it's not like every single time I turn around, I see a Black person. And so if somebody does great, I know they Black, like I didn't have that. And so I think that's a benefit that you guys have. And it's a pride that I see that people who come from HBCUs have. And that pride is lacking in people who went to PWIs. But there are other benefits, amen, to for me, at least, from having a PWI experience. I think, I've had many instances where I was the only Black person in many of my classes, where if there was a question asked and it was about, something relating to Black people, they looking at me for the answer. If I say something and I answer a question, people are looking around to see if I have the right answer, not knowing, maybe she don't know what she's talking about because I'm Black. So I had a lot of those experiences. I've even had experience one that I will never forget, in terms of affirmative action. And there was a conversation in class about affirmative action. And, you know, all I could think in my head is hearing my mom say, you better not cry in front of these white people. God forgive me, but you better not cry in front of these white people. And I mean, the conversation got so tense, and all I kept playing was what my mom, I can hear her saying, I better not cry in front of these white people. I said my piece. I said what I had to say. I had to remind them that, you know, affirmative action, we know the statistics on it. It benefits white women more than any other demographic. And so even though people think affirmative action, think Black people, it's not really about us. It never really was supposed to be about us. Amen. And so, you know, having that conversation and not having anybody to come to my defense to say, listen, this is what the statistics say, or this is the truth. It was a class against me. And then professor standing at the front of the class, like he ain't know, you know, how to help. I remember running to the library because that was the closest place to where our class was at the time, and running in the bathroom and bawling my eyes out. And I just could thank God that I didn't do it in front of those white people. I waited until I got to the bathroom. But had I been around Black people, the conversation probably would have never been what it was. But the thing that I take from that experience is that that's the real world for me. Working in corporate America right now, I had gotten experience very, very early on what my life would be like future, you know, like I wish I had that pride, but I thank God for being broken, not to tie into today's earlier service, but being broken in that way, because it was more of that breaking to come in the rest of my life. Like there were more of those situations, more of those experiences. Anytime election time comes up, I had to go to work and I hear the mess, I hear the crap. You know, anytime another Black man dies and we hear about it on the news, because we know that they're dying in high numbers anyway, but they're dying and it's publicized, or it's in the media. You know, I have to worry about going into work and having those uncomfortable conversations with people. And there's very few people to come to your rescue because we're not out there. And so, I mean, I'm grateful because I know how to deal with it, but that pride piece is everything. It allows you, I think, and you can tell me if I'm wrong, but it allows you the opportunity to focus on your education and not have to worry about, and granted, all Black people don't think the same. You know, like you can have a conversation with another Black person, their opinion is different, but I know it's not coming from a place of hate. Amen. I know that, you know, at the end of the day, we go out into the real world and we are all treated the same. We, you know, like you Black and I'm Black, even though we might differ on this, you could be Republican, I could be Democrat. At the end of the day, and I'm Democrat, just to throw it out there, I don't want nobody to think nothing, but you know, or independent, whatever, I vote Democrat, glory to God. But I think for myself, I just want to be clear about that, but it doesn't matter. Black people have this same shared experience, right? And so I wish I would have went to a school like that. So just tell me a little bit about that.
I mean, honestly speaking to you, I think what it is and even just to kind of liken it to your PWI experience, right? Two uniquely different experiences, but like safe spaces play a big part in Black people in both situations get to the finish line, right? So at a PWI, just from having a lot of friends who attended PWIs, right? You have like BSUs, like Black Student Unions, like you have the places where you can go and decompress. You have your few homies, the few people from, if you go to a state school and you from Philly, the few people that came from your city or came from your high school, like even the girl in high school that you knew but wasn't your dog like that becomes your dog in college because y'all kind of like develop that bond, right? So it just feels like it's a very different social social expression and experience of attending the PWI, but it's still about safe spaces. Now imagine if those small BSU state spaces and like homegirl moments in your room were like campus wide, right? Like that's what a HBCU kind of is. Like it's still about safe spaces, and I think on the front end, y'all guys get y'all PWI attendees kind of get that experience of this is what the real world feels like. But like what we get as HBCU students is like you might get a little bit of a kick in the rear on the back end of seeing what the real world looks like opposed to what your scholastic experience was. But the amount of people you have, like even if we're in this church setting, like the amount of prayer warriors you kind of have because you went to this school that's full of you, like it's a lot of it. So the network is there, and like and as you get higher up in your career, you figure I'll be 32 this year. So like at this point, everybody my age that graduated in 2011, like me, everybody's at a point where they like senior level, manager level, like upper management, and the people who really doing it, they're like VP level, like C-suite exec levels, like depending on where your career is taking them. If you decide to do corporate America, and if not, you're an entrepreneur, you could be wildly successful. So like we're not 22 anymore. Now, if I need to make a call, like I know the honcho in the room, like I know him, I know him or her, right? Like that's so like it's this thing where the people who form those safe spaces with you when y'all were young in the trenches and trying to like learn and navigate the throes of like business acumen and all those different things. Like the people who were doing that, now we're the biggest voices in the room. Now we're the ones representing blackness in the room at these companies and like really creating like true change. And we're also the ones, because of our HBCU pride, that when it comes down to recruitment and internships, we're giving the HBCU kids the look. We're we're giving that kid from Howard or that kid from Morgan State or that kid from North Carolina A&T, like, because we have power in the room and we put in our time in the industry, we're the reason why these like young kids are getting these looks at times, like, because like you don't really see some of your white colleagues giving those students with those backgrounds, those HBCU backgrounds, a fair look, and a fair shake at getting these opportunities, right? So like it's all about safe spaces, what I've kind of grown to learn. And it's like HBCUs provide you, I think, with a larger pool of people that contribute to your safe space. I would say that that's like probably the most resounding difference. Like it might be at a PWI, it might be 20 of y'all. I can give you clusters of 20 people from undergrad. Because you figure, like, even just to kind of like clarify for anybody that's not familiar, like Morehouse is part of the Atlanta University Center, the AUC, and it's not just Morehouse, it's Morehouse and Spelman's next door, and Clark Atlanta's next door to that. So like there are three
Yep.
separate institutions, and prior to them losing accreditation, Morris Brown was there. So at one point, like you had the campus probably spanned 2 miles, 2.5 miles maybe between the four institutions. Now there's just three institutions, and hopefully Morris Brown. I've been hearing a lot of whispers of them getting accreditation back, but like as a whole, like those are three different schools with three uniquely different cultures and three and if you have a rich and full AUC experience, you pull a little something from every school. Like I'm a Morehouse man, but I learned certain things from Morehouse. I've learned certain things from Spelman Knights. I've learned certain things from my Clark Atlanta brothers and sisters, right? Like all of them provided a unique lens on blackness. Like I think Spellhouse does this thing, and a few HBCUs do it. I would say that Hampton University does it, Howard University does it, Spellhouse does it. In some ways, FAMU does it. In some ways, North Carolina A&T does it. But those are like larger schools. But because Howard is probably the largest of the small schools, but Morehouse isn't that large. Spelman isn't that large. So it's a place where you can kind of incubate an atmosphere where like it's almost impossible to come out the person you went in as, right? Clark, I think, does a great job of kind of refining your personality, where the school doesn't necessarily change. You're probably similar to how you came in, but you're refined in all the right ways. Like I'm a Morehouse man, but I move a lot by the mantra of Clark Atlanta. Like Clark Atlanta's mantra is find a way or make one. Like that's what they teach their students from the time you get to the school. Like
I
that's
like it again. Find a way or make one.
find a way or make one is Clark Atlanta's slogan.
That's next week's sermon, folks. Tune in. I'm gonna use that.
Find a way or make one, right? And like when you see that and you see a Clark Atlanta student and you see they hustle, and it's like, oh, it makes sense. Cause like from the moment you go to summer orientation, the first thing you hear is find a way to make one. And they beat that into your head the entire time you're in the school. So like what does that do to a student? And I know for me, I spent a lot of time on Clark's campus. I wasn't like a Morehouse guy that only dealt with Spelman. Like I was on all the campuses, right? Like, my best friend Wesley went to Clark Atlanta. So we were over there. So for me, like I'm pulling from all of these things during my experience, right? Learning a lot, learning a lot, and kind of like once I got into the real world, learning how to apply that into how I live my life, how I move professionally, how I move as a man, right? Like, but on the other side with Morehouse College, they call Morehouse, and this, or maybe you don't, but they call it like Mother Morehouse, right? Like that's what they call the school. Like it has a way of raising a man up, like even how you enter the school, like everything about the school is so rooted in tradition. Like your orientation week is the same every year. Every class is brought in basically the same day, same way with the same week of programming. And probably of that week, they have this thing called the parent parting ceremony, where they make all the students sit in the middle of Martin Luther King Chapel. All the parents sit on the outer rows. So it's like 3 rows, all the students in the middle, all the parents on the outer rows. It's a lot of call and response, a lot of African drumming and traditions. But at the end of it, all the Morehouse men like walk out in a processional, go inside the gate. All the parents kind of align on the main street on Westview Drive. They line up and they ceremonially close the gates as a representation that you're giving your child to Morehouse and entrusting Morehouse with your child for those 4 years. And that's why they call it like Mother Morehouse, right? Like
I've heard of that. I've heard
yeah.
that. I got a lot of Morehouse brothers and cousins, and Miles did his thing, even though he wasn't there all 4 years, and he transferred over to Lock Haven. He definitely had a solid Morehouse experience. And so I mean, it's definitely a blessing that you guys have that opportunity. And just to share on something that you said, for me, the support, like that networking and that support, it's not the same. You come out of a PWI, you do not have the same let me be clear. I can go somewhere and I can meet another sinus grad, but they ain't gonna do squat diddly for me to help me make it or get anywhere. Like, oh, you got a job? Hey, I went to sinus. That's nice, but you're black. And I'm gonna still go with this white person over here. That's how that works. And so it sucks. But I will say there were some really solid experiences that I had that I know, it was only God, for me to have had them at a PWI. When I first got there, they have this thing called Bridge at Ursinus, and it's for all the minority students to come, in the summertime. A lot of times they feel like we come from schools that don't actually prepare us for college, so we want to give you what they call Bridge. You come to Bridge, you start a class early, you get in the custom of what school is like, what college, is like, and that whole vibe ahead of time. And so the benefit of it is that you get to start your class early, which means you get to finish your class early while everybody else is finishing a semester. But the other thing is you also get to meet the other minorities, and not just Black kids, Asian kids, Indians, Native American, whatever. We're all coming together, Latinos, Hispanics, we all come together. We all get to hang out together before school. The benefit of it was simply the meeting, but I had a professor that taught sociology, and she actually went on to go to University of Delaware and be a professor there, and an amazing Black woman. But it's that those once in a lifetime experiences. And so she pulled me into her office, said, you're really bright. I have some books I want you to read. And they're books that I probably, nobody else would have recommended those books to me. And had I been at a HBCU, those might've been some books that somebody would have said something about. And so because of her experience and because her taking the initiative, there are Black people. This is why I love Black people and I love our people, because we do things like this and it changes somebody's whole experience. No, I didn't have an HBCU experience, and she left after my first year there, but she gave me books. We go in her office, we meet about it, we talk about it. Aside from her, there was the school chaplain, Reverend Rice, who also was a professor there, and he passed away, but he would do his work and have his people that he would connect with and give them things to read and have conversations with them. And these were things that you wouldn't get. I can say that, there were times, plenty of times where, the Black students would sit together by themselves at the cafeteria, the book, check out the book. But we would sit together and we'd have conversations about the stuff that we were experiencing in class and with other students. And I mean, it was definitely rough, but we didn't get the support in class, and we definitely didn't get that network after. I mean, the Black people might look out for each other, but it was legit. There was a handful of us. Mm-hmm. So it's like my network is definitely based off of something outside of having that experience. So you definitely benefited from that. If you could tell, just like a quick, before we sum up, a quick, just a couple words, like what just package it up. What is the HBCU experience and why is it beneficial to our Black students, our Black young people? What is it with the hot point? Why do they need to go? We heard about the networking. We heard about the camaraderie. We heard about the safe space. We heard about, if it's just one thing you could kind of leave them with solid, like why this is the thing that you should do. Tell us what that is.
Honestly speaking, I think it kind of goes back to a point I mentioned earlier, this whole thing I call the power of possibility. Like as black people, we don't really have there are a lot of times and a lot of instances where the reason why we don't think something is achievable is because we haven't seen it, right? Like it's funny because I was just watching the interview. Beanie Siegel did an interview with Oskino, right? And it's like all the rage back home in Philly. But one thing that Bean said that I thought was like super impactful is he was just like that golden era of Philly that we kind of grew up in when it was like state property and like Eve and all them. Allen Iverson was in town. He was just like the difference between then and now is that all the stars in the city were in the city, right? So like seeing that is impactful because at the same time the Roots were still in the city. They hadn't moved yet. Music Social was in the city. Joe Scott's still in the city. Like now everybody's kind of spread across the world. So like when you go to a HBCU it kind of takes you out of your city and put onto this campus, but like you're watching what's achievable across the board, right? Because like it's closer than ever. And like when you start to see that, you start to kind of think like, why can't I be the one to do that as well? So whether it's you wanting to like pledge a frat sorority, that wasn't my world, but like for my friends who did, you could. And if even if you didn't, you saw that the ones who didn't, like on the PWI's campus, I know I spoke to a lot some of my friends. Some of the people who pledged felt like that was the way to kind of like get into that network for after you get out of school, right? Like for me, it was me and my homies, like none of us are Greek, and we were as popping, if not more popping than the Greeks. And that's not revisionist history. Like if you go down there and
that's a word right there. You need to preach that. People need to hear that.
You be like, and that's not a shot at all. Like, please, if that's what you desire and if that's your family history, please like continue to try that lineage. But what I'm saying is like we didn't feel like we needed to do it per se because we were as popular on campus for a myriad of other different reasons, right? So like for me, it kind of became this thing of like manifesting the life that you want through the power of possibility. Life can be whatever it is I want it to be. And like you start to see that because you see it happening all around you. Like even when you look at like a dude like Metro Boomin from St. Louis, right outside of St. Louis, kind of in that Ferguson area, right? Like went to Morehouse because he was on like MySpace, connecting with Gucci Mane and all them from high school and MySpace, used Morehouse as his way to get to Atlanta, did a strong year and a half in school, didn't finish, but like
it's and that, let me be very clear. I'm not telling young folks not to graduate, I think a lot of schools at Ursinus, they had a program with Howard, and 2 of our students went to Howard just for the year, just to do 2 semesters, and then they came back to Ursinus. And I know my aunt, she's went, to Ohio Wesleyan, but she also did Spelman for a year, and that changed her. All her daughters went to Spelman, her son went to Morehouse, but it was because of her 1-year experience at Spelman. I think, that I'm not saying you have to even go there all 4 years, but I'm just saying to get that experience, it's dope. And I encourage people to do it. Again, I'm not coming from that background, and so I can't speak from personal experience, but just seeing it's a certain light, that you guys has. And one of the people that's watching on Facebook made this comment. She said it gave her a sense of pride and unity. It made her feel valued, connected with organizations. That's the networking piece. It made her find out her strengths, and it challenged her. And so, whoever, has, the same experience, we invite you to write in. But I think it's a dope concept. I would encourage anybody, who has the opportunity, support HBCUs. And for those of you that might not go, you might not have college age children anytime soon, if you want to donate to the HBCUs, I encourage you to do that as well, because they need money. We talked about it today, having needs and not having the resources. Our HBCUs are in that place. And while they do have some endowments and some solid money coming in, they could always use more. I know when Miles went, it was just a lot of stuff that we witnessed, and we were like, oh no, they need some money, and it is what it is. And so, and it can't just be us giving back, as in, or not us, or people who went there, people who didn't get a chance to go to HBCU, but see the value of it in the importance of it in our communities and in our children, our young Black children's lives. Give to these HBCUs, whatever it is, you have, we're asking that, you divert your efforts there because they need it, right?
Absolutely. And it's like paying it forward, right? Like these institutions are like bastions of education and formulating like not just our next like leaders, but like we're in this creative renaissance, right? Even like a school you mentioned, Howard, like there's no Black school that produces Black creatives. Like everybody from Roberta Flack and Donny Hathaway to Debbie Allen to like the whole gamut, even down to like a Lance Gross, like they're the Chase B, Travis Scott's DJ, Howard guy, like my homie, like these are like all HBCU kids. Like a person really moving and shaking at the company's escaping me. But there are a lot of movers and shakers in every creative discipline coming from a school like Howard, right? So if you want to be, if you're young and you're Black and you're creative and you want to incubate those talents and POVs in a space that feels safe, why wouldn't you want to kind of pay that forward and continue that, right? So it's extremely important, extremely pertinent to us as a people to like be involved and at least aware. Like the thing that I want to change from my, like, if God blesses me to have kids, right? I'm not going to force my kids to go to HBCU, but I'm going to like make them way more aware. Like you figure, you know me, T, I'm born in 89. So like Different World was off the air in 93. I was 4. I didn't have that. I watched A Different World growing up, and that made me want to go to a HBCU story. Like I didn't really know much about anything. If it really was such a chance encounter of like my best friend's older brother went to a school. Wes's parents, some like Wes's brother and Wes's parents, Wes's brother somehow convinced his parents to send Wes down there for homecoming when we were juniors in high school. And Wes came back to class that Monday like it was the road to El Dorado. Like everything Wayne has said about Morehouse is true. Like, and that was the reason I decided to go. I said, "Oh, it's up." Like, "Oh, I'm going." So,
listen, that was Miles. We was wondering, let me just be fully transparent. My brother Miles, we were wondering, like, this, and I ain't gonna say the words we use, but yo, Miles ain't hit us up in months to ask for money. I'm like, yo, he a cop, we broke. Like, bro, I know you need money. He ain't hit us up. Some kid not even from here. I think the kid was from Baltimore, and their parent or their aunt or cousin, somebody works at the same job as my mom. And so they're like, yeah, they went to go visit Morehouse, and they were saying that they went to this party, and the guy over the party, his name was Miles from Philadelphia. And we like, hold on, wait, what? Like, and I'm proud of him because he was hustling. He learned stuff while he was there. Somebody at Morehouse showed him how to throw a solid Morehouse party and make some money. And he was able to do it and didn't have any need for any money. He did not reach home asking us for a dime. So I don't know what they doing at Morehouse, but they definitely making men. They turning them hustles and they making them into something. So I ain't mad.
Yeah, man. Like, I remember I went down there one time, took Miles out for breakfast, me and my boys. And like, I'm gonna treat you. And he said, "No, I'm good." I still treated him, but he was like, "No, I'm good." And I was just like,
don't know college kids say they good. That he was out there making money. I don't know what, and I would get different stuff. Miles's favorite rapper what's the guy's name? J. Cole is his favorite rapper. Like that's just that's his. He sent me a screenshot, a picture one time. J. Cole had came and taught and spoke in one of their classes. And I'm just like, this, you can't pay for this at a PWI. It don't matter how many times we would ask for that kind of person to come. The answer would be no, because they couldn't find the value. We were not, as Black people, valuable enough to the school to bring in a voice like that to say the things that might needed to be said to us, or in a way that we could receive it, because that's still culturally, even though we had a PWI, that we still Black. We blackity black, like they say. That's who we are. And so we definitely didn't get those kinds of experiences. I mean, and being as though Morehouse has, such the legacy that it does with all the people that came in and out there and the other HBCUs, we don't have that. We can't bring somebody, we got some solid folks. We're out here trying to make a name for ourselves so we can be those people that can go back to our science and connect with the Black audience. We don't have that, right? You guys definitely have that. And so we got about like 2 minutes left. I don't want to keep people in too long, but I just want to thank everybody for tuning in. And Chris, thank you so much. And this is not the last time. We got to do some more combos because you're well-versed in many areas. You are a Renaissance man. You're cultured in so many ways. And I mean, I think it's dope for people to even hear, what you have to say about stuff. But I'm just truly grateful for the fact that we have these HBCUs, and I'm trusting God that, we can just put the word out even more to our young Black people that they should go to them. And not only that, but there's more work to be done. So that's the HBCU space. But I think it takes a lot of us on our end, especially those of us in corporate America, to make our jobs and things see the value of hiring students that come from HBCUs. A lot of times it's looked at, their curriculum is not as good, or and so they'll hire somebody coming from Syracuse over somebody coming from HBCU because they have no idea. I remember having a conversation with somebody. I said, yeah, my brother he's going to Morehouse. And they're like, what's that? And I'm like, what do you mean? What is that? Like, what are you talking about? Like, and so for us, we know what they are, but the rest of the world, they don't know what it is. And I think that's why they build you up so that you know who you are, so that when you have those experiences, you're not second guessing like who you are. But I do want to encourage us to, like I said, those of us that are on the back end of it, not just to give our money and not just encourage people to go to HBCUs, but to have conversations with people in hiring positions and things of that nature to say, these are some dope schools. And what they teach you at these schools, you can't get anywhere else. And so what we want to do is to see the value that comes out of those schools and encourage people to see the value that comes out of those schools.
Absolutely. And I think some of that is also just about like appreciation, because to your point, like they can say they've never heard of the school, but I guarantee you know someone who went to the school.
Absolutely.
There's someone that you admire, someone in some big position. There are too many C-suite execs that come from like the Howards of the world VP level people that come from the Howards of the world, the Morehouses of the world, Spelmans of the world. Like one of the head honchos of Chick-fil-A is a Spelmanite, right? So like the people you aspire to be like went to these
They
institutions.
went to these schools. That's right. And you got to remind them. And that's the thing. I think that for us, you know, I'm sure there are lists, but that's the list we need. I need to carry that list in my back pocket. So whenever I'm having these conversations, I can pull it out and say, you know, somebody on this list. All right, so then hire this person. You know, like, and that's what needs to be said. But this is an awesome, and this is, I'm just going to tell folks that are watching now, this is part one, because we got to continue this convo. There's so many more layers to this and more depth that we can get into, and we definitely will. So next week we have Malika Bethia of Buy It Back Black coming through to have a conversation with us. And you know, Chris, we probably get you to come back on that convo too, and just have us three have a chat. But I'll reach out to you after this and, you know, see your input and all that good stuff.
Always around you, sis. Always.
I appreciate it. We love y'all, and we thank y'all. Look, your mom is real proud. And wait, she got your mom on here. She got your nephew, your aunt on here, Aunt Rochelle. Chris, your whole family on this joint. I'm loving it.
You already know.
I love it. Christian family comes through. So we love y'all, Black people. This is Black History Month. We're doing this conversation. The talk is something that we're having every week this month in February. But then after that, we're going to move the talk to once a month. So we just want to continue to encourage other Black people. Our culture, you know, needs to be heard and spread as big as possible. So thank you, Chris, for coming through. And we'll see you again real soon.
Absolutely, hit me. Love y'all so much. Thanks for